Welcome back to Thompson to Clark. We actually have some, I don't know, what would you call this series with the Braves? Like, we're too early for it to be like that important, but it might be like the most important series of the season so far for the Giants.
Yeah. I mean, all the Dodger series are always important, but that's always, you're like 11 games back. Can we crawl back to 7 games back or whatever. That's kind of what it's been lately against the Dodgers the last few years. This is enormous, man. I mean, the Braves are faltering. They've fallen back out of the wild card hunt for the most part. Not out of it, but pretty much where we are. And same amount of wins as us, and 3-game series in our park.
The 4-game series, I think.
Actually. Oh, is it a 4-game series?
Yeah. The Braves are the third wild card right now, a half a game ahead of the Mets.
Okay, so they jumped back in.
A game and a half ahead of the Cards and a game and a half ahead of us. Now, I've been saying this all year long. The Giants are average until they're not average, and they're still only 2 games over 500, but going in the right direction. They're the home record is actually fairly impressive now. They're 11 games over 500 at home, which bodes well for this upcoming series against Atlanta. But still, they're still -5 in the run differential, which kind of tells me that what we've been saying, they're an average baseball team. Now, the pitching staff, the way it is right now, when you have your 3 aces going as hard as they're going, you could very well be an above average baseball team by winning 3 out of 5 games, right? Like if you were to say, when Webb, Snell, and Robbie Ray pitches, we have a pretty decent shot at winning, no matter who we play. But still, at the end of the day, the offensive failures, for the most part, all season long, are, pretty much the reason why this team is the way that they are. Can the offense kickstart a little bit for the run scoring department? What's so interesting? This is why I love the run differential and the run scored and the runs against. You see all the bashers in that Braves lineup. How surprised are you to know that the Giants have scored, though they've played 3 more games, I think, than the Braves? They've scored 27 more runs than the Braves this year.
That is absolutely shocking because, I mean, they haven't had Ronald Acuna Jr. for, I'd say, almost the majority of the season now. At this point, here we are in August, mid-August. But even that's still a team with Ozuna and Albies and Olsen. I mean, you've got mashers on that team. And they play in the East where it's hot and humid, for the most part during the summer. So the balls fly out of most ballparks, as we saw in Washington against the Nats. So yeah, that's actually kind of shocking. Are you sure you looked at that right?
I did like a double take because the other thing about this is I watched some of the Braves stuff this past week because I just wanted to catch up. So I watched a lot of the recaps of their games, and the Brewers must have hit like 7 home runs against them in like one of these games. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the run differential, the runs against for the Braves. On this the MLB standings, they are they've only given up 469 runs compared to the Giants 535. That 469 is crazily impressive too, because they're only the Brewers in the National League, I believe, have given up less runs, and I don't think the Mariners in the American League have given up less runs, but the Mariners don't score any runs themselves. So that's impressive, because all I saw this last week was just their pitchers just giving up long home runs. And like, this is a legitimate series. Now we are still, so the Giants are 61-59. So it's 120 games. So still over 40 games left in the season, but this chunk of 4 games, it could swing a lot of things. I know the Mets and the Cardinals are are probably rooting for the Giants to take at least 3 out of 4 here to help their cases. And then, you look at kind of the swings and the trends. The Giants, 7 out of their last 10 that they've won. The Braves only won 3 out of their last 10, including giving up a game. I think was it Sunday? Was Sunday the game that they gave up where they were up big time and they gave up all the runs in the 8th and the 9th?
I think that might have been Saturday against Colorado.
Whatever game that was.
Yeah, I think it might have been Saturday.
And so it's just like there are scenarios where this Braves team. I was asking my friend, and I'm going to give her responses in a second here because she's a big time Braves fan. She's a diehard. Like she's like live tweeting games, kind of like we do and stuff. So I was just interested in what she thought about the team, being that she's seen some really great baseball in the last 3 years. And so I asked her a couple questions, and I'll give you her answers pretty quickly. So the first question was just, I was just like, hey, give me a paragraph about how you feel about the team currently. And she said, the Braves have been struggling to hold it together. They had an offensive burst in the last series and still only managed to win 1 game. The Giants either score a lot or find a way to win. I think some Giants fans would actually argue that, but it's interesting that that's the perception of the team. And she said the Braves aren't doing that. Luke Jackson is still pitching like he did for the Giants. They might have also just lost Minter for the season. Yeah. And then she said, at least Soler is productive. So then I said, okay, here's a couple more questions. I'm very interested in your thoughts on these things. What do you think of Soler's defense when he's in the outfield? Because I was watching one of those games in Atlanta, and they have that big old brick wall in right field. And there were 2 balls that I saw where he was like, he had to have, in order for him to get one of these balls, he had to be about 25 feet tall. And he still went into the wall as if he had a chance to make this catch. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? This ball is going to hit the wall and bounce way over your head. That's what happened. The guy got a triple. And then there was another play where, again, he goes into the corner and he's in between like a jump and like a reach out with your arm. And it was just a mess. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why is this guy even playing? So her answer about what do you think of Soler's defense is, she says his defense sucks, but we got him for his bat, LOL. And then he hit 4 home runs in 3 games in Colorado. Yeah. And I think they said he's hit 8 jacks in his last 7 games in Colorado. So there goes a bunch of what his Giants home runs were too, was Colorado. Yeah. Keep Soler in Colorado. He might hit 60. He might be a challenging judge.
Well, and that's the whole thing. It just quick sidetrack. Colorado, first off, they're not going to pay anybody. Second off, they're not, and that's why they're not wooing any offensive hitters, but you're not going to get anybody over there offensively, because they can't put a team together to win any ball games. They've lost 74 games this year, but that's neither here nor there. But it's just, I still don't understand how Colorado doesn't have the best offense in all of baseball, and it's because they just can't keep anybody, Arenado and everybody else. So, yeah, I threw it out to Harveen. Harveen is our guy. He's been my best friend since like we were 14 years old, and he's been a Braves fan. I sat and watched the Braves World Series heartaches against the Twins and the Yankees back in the day with him, and got to celebrate when they beat Cleveland finally in 5. So
Matt Williams was the one that was very upset about that one.
Yeah, he was very upset. I think everybody else was pretty upset. Who was on the Braves at the time, or who was on the I keep wanting to say Guardians, on the Indians at the time.
Yeah.
Because they said, who was it who said, was it Omar Vizquel who said that Jose Mesa went out there to close out the game and win the series, and he just had dead eyes. And I think Jose Mesa kind of took that to heart. But I asked Harveen what he thought of this series, and all he said was elimination series. Do or die for both teams. And that kind of sums it all up, right? I mean, if you if you split this series, okay, you might be okay. If you lose this series or get swept in this series, it could be detrimental to the rest of your season for either of these two teams. I don't see it going that way. I can't see. I mean, you got a 4-game series. Two teams are fairly evenly matched. Tonight's going to be tough, and we're recording this on Monday night, but tonight's going to be tough. We've got Blake Snell on the mound, who got roughed up a little bit in his last outing after the no-hitter, but they've got Chris Sale. And Chris Sale,
he's stud,
lights out this season, and kind of a favorite for the Cy Young Award. But you know what that always means for the Giants, who are crud offensively, is we're going to go against one of the best pitchers in baseball at home, and we're going to light him up for 6 or 7 runs in the first inning. That seems to happen every couple of seasons, where all of a sudden the Giants are going up against a buzzsaw pitcher on the mound, and they knock him out, and you go, huh, I didn't see that one coming. So there's going to be some I didn't see that one comings during this series, and I hope it starts with tonight.
So then I asked her about the starting pitching, what she thinks about it, and she wrote, "It's barely holding up right now. Morton's age is showing, and it's hurting us. I think he gave up in his last start, or one of his last 2 starts, maybe. He gave up the most home runs in a game pitched against him, and that was one of those Brewers games. Fried is still only a few starts removed from injury, but hopefully he'll give us some solid starts. Thank the baseball gods for Chris Sale."
Yeah.
And then the last question I asked her, I said, you've seen some great baseball in the last several years. How does this team measure up to you? And she wrote, "We won the World Series with an 88-win team. I still think we got some help from Hank Aaron on that one. This team has lost Acuna again. We lost Strider. Ozzie is out for 8 weeks. Lost Fried. Sean Murphy missed 2 months at the start of the season. Riley missed nearly a month. Harris missed a lot of time and is finally getting activated on Wednesday. There was a stretch earlier this season where they couldn't get a win to save their lives, and it's come back to bite us. It's been frustrating. Every time I think they don't have anything left, they prove me wrong." So this is what happens when you have had success. And I would say 2016 was a lot like this for us, where the team battles, and you just feel like, hey, they just need a fair shake and they can do anything. And so that's still how she feels. It's very good to feel that way. You still have faith in the team because of what they've shown you in the past. And with us, that was 2016. They made it all the way to the wild card. We still thought they were going to pull that series out and move on, and they didn't. And it's been, it's been really rough since then, save for 2021. But for us, it's the opposite. It's almost like, and I actually wanted to get your take on this, and this is kind of what Big Leo was talking about in our chat. He said the Braves are currently slumping. If we can't take advantage, we're no wild card playoff team. I think for me, whenever I think, oh, they might be a little bit better than I thought, then that's when they don't play well. And so it's just like setting this expectation of, are you better than average? And then they go, nope, we're average. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to believe them that they're average because they keep falling back to average or even slightly under average. But I don't know if they played great baseball last week, but they took care of business, right? They took 3 out of 4 from Washington. And the game that they lost was one that I was like, oh man, this is going to be the easiest victory of the whole road trip. And they just gave it right back. Birdsong has had 2 poor starts in a row. And they even lost their closer during that series, the rain game in Washington, where Duvall comes in and they give him 3 runs, or Washington gave the Giants 3 runs. And he's just got to shut it down. And he just walks 2 guys on, and he gives up a 3-run homer, and that seemed to be the end of the rope there. So it's just like there are things to be happy about, but at the same time, you see the visible scars on this team, and I can't buy in completely. And they run the lineup out there today, and it was like, oh, what is the guy's name that we just traded for, whose name I keep mispronouncing?
Mark Canna.
He's hitting second or whatever. And it's like, oh, so this guy is actually in the mix, and our top prospect can't even get off the bench again, even as a DH, though we traded the DH to open up spots for him. It's stuff like that where it's like, okay, we're still in patchwork mode. We're still in like on the margins. Like we're going to grab this guy on the margins and ride the hot bat for a couple of weeks, but we don't really have a solution to the current situation. Now, Canna could just be the second coming of Cody Ross for the rest of the season. That would be amazing. I mean, it seems like that's kind of how they have treated him all of last week. Like he's making diving stops at first base and throwing from his ass and throwing guys out. It's like that stuff does help a team, you know, those kind of plays, those kind of, you know, saving plays for a team. You know, you watch Matt Chapman priding just the best defensive third baseman we've probably seen since Matt Williams. Just amazing over there. So those things are great, but I still have this worry. Like, I don't want to believe, because the second I believe, then they're going to lose 3 out of 4 and I'm going to feel like a fool. That's how I feel about this team.
Yeah. And I totally see where Big Leo is coming from. And I get it, because yesterday was a perfect example. Sunday, you take the first 2 games from Detroit, you think, hey, but I mean, most people think, hey, the Giants can sweep the Tigers and they can show that they're ready to battle it out for the final wild card spot, or maybe even the second wild card spot. But I knew when I woke up yesterday morning, it was that feeling of something's not going to go right. This team is not going to sweep the Tigers. And then we're going to have to go into the Braves series after having lost a game where we could have gained and gotten ourselves even closer to that final wild card spot, and made some noise. But then you get a situation too where the Giants can tie the game. They're down 5-2. Now they're down 5-4 because they're battling back. And Chapman hits a leadoff triple. And what does he do? As soon as, contact play, he's running and breaking for the plate, and you've got nobody out. And he's, I'm not going to rail on the guy because he knows, obviously. And it's easy for us to sit here and say, hey, obviously you don't do that. That's not a situation. Chapman knows he's got some wheels. He said afterwards that he thought the ball was hit a little bit more to the side of the shortstop, and that he was going to have to maybe, square up and make a throw or an off balance throw, and he was going to be able to beat it and tie the game. But again, do you take a chance like that with nobody out and a runner at third base? Giants have scoring woes. I get it. And then he does enough to get Canna over to second base. Now you've got Canna at second with 1 out, and then another base running error. A ball hit behind Canna, or actually, I think it was hit in front of him, or it was right near him. I mean, it was one of those tweeners. And he breaks for third, and they get him at third. So there's those types of situations where you look at that and you say, is this team ready? Is this team, if that team made that mistake, Blake Snell on the mound, in the playoffs, in the wild card series, and he's got you you're only down 1-0, and he's battling out there and has only given up 1 run, and you're trying to fight and scrap for 1 run, and you see that happen, you think this team doesn't have it. It's not destiny. It's not something that's going to push this team over the top. So, but again, they surprise us every other series. I swear, it's every other series they pop in and surprise us.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure. Again, the Friday night game against Detroit, they needed in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Yes. They needed 3 sacrifice flies to win that game, and they caught it. And so you have to look at it and say, well, a bad team who doesn't play good baseball wouldn't have gotten any of those sacrifice flies, wouldn't have scored, wouldn't have gotten a walk-off at home.
Yeah.
But the Giants were able to pull that off. So yeah, I do feel rough at times with this team. And I do feel I'm not 100% sure. And we're in August. I mean, we're in mid-August, and I'm still not 100% sure that this is a wild card team.
Mm-hmm.
I know from the pitching staff, this is a wild card team. I can tell you that. But Hayden Birdsong has had some problems the last couple of outings. He's given up a lot of home runs. We know Kyle Harrison, he can give up 4 home runs in a game. We've seen that happen too.
And that velocity is way down.
And it is. And so those guys are tired. They're getting tired. Is it time for Jordan Hicks to come back and make a spot start? He traded away Alex Cobb. He got rocked the other day for Cleveland. But who do you have at this point that you could slide in? So it's kind of tough, because you look at it and you go, well, if you get there, then you've got Snell. And, I'll start with Webb, because Webb's going to be your number one. You're going to start with Webb, Snell, Ray. And those are 3 fantastic pitchers. If you're in the wild card series, it's 2 out of 3 on the road. If you are the, I guess it's the 6 seed and the 5 seed. If you're the 6 seed and the 5 seed, you're on the road. 2 out of 3. If you can sneak in and somehow get that, that number 3 seed, then you've got a series against the 4 seed at home, 2 out of 3. Either way, those 2 out of 3 pitchers, if you had to throw all 3 of those pitchers, I've got a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
We just need to see more out of the offense to say, yeah, this is a legit team, to battle out in the playoffs. And like you said, if you've got Canna batting second,
yeah,
and your top prospect, who we thought was going to get way more at bats, what do you have? 4 at bats last week? 4 at bats.
Why is he even up?
Yeah, and that's the question too. Why is he up? And in a key situation, they needed a right-hander up yesterday. And granted, it was only the 6th inning, and I think they were kind of saving Luciano for later, which which Bob Melvin did, and we saw that. But you needed a right-handed bat, and they sent up Casey Schmidt, and the first 2 strikes that he gets, and we've seen Casey Schmidt at bats before, where you're going, you don't have to throw this guy a strike. Nope. You don't even have to throw him a pitch in the time zone. Nope. I mean, you could throw it 8 feet over his head, and he's going to swing at it. So in that situation, I would love to have seen Luciano up, because again, you don't know if you're going to get another chance down the line to tie the game, or for a big hit. So in that situation, if you're not sending Luciano up, why is he in the bigs right now? Why isn't he in Sacramento getting at bats?
Yeah, that's that one. This is why when they explain moves, sometimes you kind of wondered, like, okay, like if that's what he's really saying, it makes sense. Oh yeah, Soler this. Oh, really? The only reason they traded Soler is so they could get out of the money. Like that was literally the reason.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't able to get somebody to take on all of his contract, he'd still be swinging at sliders in the dirt for us. That would just be the scenario. So it was less about Luciano. Maybe it could be about both, but then you get Canna, and all of a sudden you have more faith in him. I'm sure Bob Melvin's going to have more faith in him than Luciano. But it's just like this thing where I'm just like, man, you keep saying X and then you do Y, and then what happens when Y stops working? Well, X isn't ready, and it's just going to be bad times. So that is kind of the that is the, I think, the feel of a lot of Giants fans is kind of just what we said, just the up and downness, the not that, we're not unconfident in the team. We just know what the team is. Like we're not right. we're not thinking that there's this like unrealistic viewpoint that is out there that we don't see, like, oh, the baseball gods are good, all those things, the reasons why you explain, even years, all those things to explain why things work the way that they do. I'm just waiting for them to get on a run, and so I go, okay, they're not just an average baseball team. I can't wait for that to happen. If it does, then I will gladly say it on this show.
Well, and like you said too, they win 4 in a row, and then they go and play the game they played yesterday and lose. And then the confidence isn't there at this moment for me to say they can go on and win 4 in a row again because they're playing the Braves. I'm looking at that and going, this team could lose 3 out of 4, but they have the pitching. Ray goes in this series, Snell goes tonight, Webb goes in the final of the series, but the Braves have Chris Sale on the mound. So if the Giants lose a game, maybe it's the Chris Sale game, and then they go on and win 3 out of 4. But at this point in the season, for you to look at your team and say, We're going against a team that is even to us for the most part, and it could easily go either way. And so to say that, you think, I mean, now if we said that if we were playing the Dodgers or the Phillies, then you've got a team.
Mm-hmm.
That can compete. We've got a team that can compete with the teams that are like us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's great. But again, the whole goal is to get there. So if they can compete against the teams that are like them, and they can get there with that rotation. And I know I keep harping on that, but I mean, it really is. It is a nasty rotation. If you told the Mets, because that's who the Giants would be lined up against, they'd go to New York and play against the Mets. If you told Mets and Mets fans that, hey, you're in the wild card round, you got to face the Giants, but you get them at your place, you get them at Citi Field, but you got to face Webb and then Snell and then possibly Robbie Ray. They might go, oh,
Not great.
great.
No, not great at all. The thing about last week's schedule. So I hope people aren't thinking that we are bragging about them winning the week against bad teams. Those teams are a shade below what the Giants are, and they just took care of business. That's what you want them to do. You want them to take care of business against teams that are not as good as them. They're not that far away from the Giants. They're closer to the Giants than, say, the Giants are close to the Dodgers, but you just take care of business, which is why this weekend, when they go into Oakland, if they lose a game, I'm going to be so mad.
Right. And it's a 2-game series.
Two-game series.
Take those 2 games.
That's it. You get a break. You get a rare Friday off,
and
then you have Saturday and Sunday in Oakland. So they need to take care of business there. Before we move on to some of the other things that we're going to talk about, what did you think of the 2014 stuff from the other day?
That was cool. You know what? I turned it off after I had a lot of stuff to do. Obviously, it was Saturday, and I do have it recorded. And I want to go back and watch. But I like to watch the player introductions. That's always fun. Because you get to see like the crowd reaction and everything else. And you knew they were going to go crazy for Buster Posey. You knew they were going to go. And I'm surprised they didn't leave Buster Posey for second to last and then Bumgarner, because those 2 guys were.
Wait, what was the order?
Oh, Buster Posey was like
early
in the middle. Yeah, he was somewhere in the middle. And then Bum was last.
Yeah, Bum was last. I saw that one.
So they brought him in and he grabbed the trophy, walked out with it and everything. Bochy's recorded message was awesome. Nice reflection. That was super fun. I eat those things up, man. When they brought out Gene Machi, I thought, oh, I wonder if anybody's gonna mention Gene Machi in the dugout.
No one's sitting downwind from him.
Yeah, exactly.
From Davis, he's talking about Bumgarner. Big dad bod energy from the 2014 guy.
Yeah,
more than Bumgarner, but
except
Bumgarner
for who was the one guy who was jacked, left fielder. Botched the ball in 2014, and we thought he was never going to pick it up, and almost allowed
he's not Juan Perez
to score. Yeah.
He's a Juan Perez. Is he jacked?
Yeah, he was jacked, man. Yeah, he was yoked. I mean,
he looked in good shape. He looked in playing shape.
Yeah, there was a lot surrounding the muscle, but there was a lot of muscle.
That team. If we were to go back and like really study that team, I think what we'd realize is like, wow, they were not great, but they had like 2 or 3 great players who carried them. And then they just had guys who, for whatever reason, like a Ishikawa coming in and playing all these different positions.
Well, did you see Boch's recorded message? He said, and Ishikawa, he goes, I still don't have any idea why I put you in there. He said, I don't know why you're there. I guess we didn't have anybody else to match up at that point, but he said you came up with a big home run.
Yeah.
He just threw him right under the bus. He said, I don't know why you were in there.
That's funny. And he's hitting coach in San Jose.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's really cool.
and I think he's beloved. I mean, everybody talks very highly about him. George Contos is the only dude who looks like he hasn't aged like a minute, but we see him on TV all the
I've
time.
seen Contos walking in San Francisco before
Yeah,
a baseball game. He's
he's
like,
a big dude.
yeah, no, I mean he's he looks the part, but he's the kind of guy who wears like the blazer with the sneakers, which
Oh
is like
yeah,
my
yeah.
my least favorite look. But that's that kind of trendy hip, trendy look that a lot of the
Isn't that
players do.
who was the Warriors coach back in the day, back in the 80s? Wasn't
Don Nelson.
yeah, wasn't that the Don Nelson look? Didn't he wear sneakers with the
It would be like
Yeah.
a turtleneck and the worst looking blazer with like just white tennis shoes, like because he
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
care. He was how when Marshawn Lynch would show up to the press conference and then he'd
Yeah,
say
'cause he had to be there.
the only reason I'm here is because I'll get fined, and he would just completely just restate that every single question.
Yeah.
Don Nelson only wore that so that he wouldn't get fined, and so he didn't care what he looked like. He just like, oh, jacket, here's my turtleneck, and here's my slacks, and I'm just gonna wear sneakers because I'm fitting the dress code. So that's why he did it. It was just,
The other one, we're not going to talk the whole night about Warriors coaches, but I loved wasn't the hippie coach? Wasn't that George Karl? Wasn't he
yeah.
kind of the hippie coach?
I mean, he was a player in the 70s.
He was into the Grateful Dead, and he was
Oh
buddies
no,
with.
that's also Don Nelson. I think
Was that
you're talking
also
about. I
Don
think it's
Nelson? Okay,
also Don Nelson.
I was going to say it was Don Nelson, but I thought, I mean, it looks more like it would be George Karl, but that's right. Yeah. So Don Nelson.
Nelson is also now he is much older now than the
Right.
last time I saw him interviewed, but I want to say Don Nelson like lives in Hawaii and just like smokes weed all day. I think like that's his deal.
Well, that's kind of the life, huh? Him and Willie Nelson hanging out in Maui, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a couple of other things as we kind of talk about the week that was. What do you think about? Do you have faith? I should say is a better way to put it, in their ability to score runs against good pitching to match, because that's what playoff baseball is going to be, right?
Yeah,
when you get close to
100%.
the end, the pitching starts to the teams with the pitching, they pull away. And I really wonder, and I'm watching Ramos. I know he's got a bum finger, he's hanging in there. Watching Baby Yaz and Conforto coming up with big hits, I don't have a ton of confidence, for them to consistently do that. Fitzy's still playing good baseball. Brett Wisely's, kind of solid, but there's who's the one person that you have confidence in to get hot and possibly carry them if they need it.
I mean, the obvious choice is Chapman, and the obvious choice because with his offense and his defense, he's the third leading WAR player in the National League this season, which is, I mean, that's a free agent signing steal right there.
Awesome.
I think any other team, I mean, the Dodgers would love to have him at third base, in that lineup as well for a 1-year deal, basically. But I mean, it's got to be so Chapman, and then I would have to say if Chapman. I'm trying to pick a left-handed bat because I can't. I don't want to pick two right-handed bats. You know what I mean? I don't see Lamont Wade Jr. catching fire. I don't see Yaz being that guy. So it's got to be Conforto, right? I mean, so it's got to be Conforto and Chapman are the two. I'm going to pick two. I know you said pick one, but I got to pick two because we've seen it all season long. If one guy gets hot, he's not carrying the team. That's just not happening because we don't have the discipline for the most part to get on base. I mean, you talk about like, Lamont Wade Jr. gets a 10-pitch walk the other day, and then Ramos comes up and first pitch hacking it at a ball at his knees and grounds out. I mean, you're like a beautiful 10-pitch at bat, and then that. So that's it kind of seems like the game plan isn't super consistent across the board. But I think if you can get a right-handed bat in Chapman and a left-handed bat in Conforto getting hot at the same time, not striking out, getting on base, I think you have enough parts around you where you can score some runs. Or the entire lineup being patient, pitch counting the hell out of starters and getting to the bullpen. But we know, playoff teams have lights out bullpens too, unless you're the Dodgers and then you have a crap bullpen. But that being said, if they can work counts against starters, and we've seen them do that too, if they can work counts against starters, I think, they could be in a great situation. Tonight's going to be a great example. If they go up against Chris Sale and Chris Sale has a 5-pitch first inning, you're sitting there going, he can go 9 innings tonight if we keep that up and make it easy for the starting pitcher. So yeah,
I want
up
to
and
see
down
Luke
the board.
Jackson tonight. That's who I want to see.
Well, if we see Luke Jackson, it probably means we're winning, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Well, now they threw him. They threw him in a couple games where they were kind of meaningful innings, and I think they kind of paid for it.
Yeah, I think so. And I did see him in one game where I think they were down like 9-4.
Oh, okay.
But that might have been the first game that he was over. Yeah, they were just trying to get him some innings.
And if we don't just strike Soler out like 5 times in a row, we know him better than anybody else.
Yeah, Patrick Bailey's got to have a game plan against him. And Snell's, he can back foot slider him to death, right? Although he is patient. I mean, that was the one thing we saw from Soler that shocked me as a Giants fan when Soler came over. The fact that he could walk. The dude could work a count. But then he would work a count, get in some 3-2 counts and swing at a fastball. Like
just the check swings just drive me nuts too. I'm like, so you don't have to check swing a slider. You can just let the slider go. You've seen a million sliders in your life. Why is this one so surprising? You know it's coming. Like, why are you check swinging the slider?
I want to ask you a question too. And this is gonna air after it, but reception during his first at bat, what do you think he's gonna get?
Giants fans aren't vicious.
No,
I think they'll give him light applause. They'll applaud him. They'll give him light applause.
They'll applaud him unless the bases are low.
Yeah, unless he hits a jack, and then they're going to boo the hell out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't do any of that while you were here. By the way, I just wanted to quickly shout out my friend at Samantha _1713 who gave me her Braves quotes. It's fun to, when you know people who follow some of these other teams, just kind of get the temperature of what they feel, because we know what we feel. We've been talking about this all year long. Going back to the Duvall thing, we talked about it a little bit, but what did you think about that move this late in the season and without really having somebody ready to step in? It's not like this was Mariano Rivera stepping in for John Wetland or Frankie Rodriguez stepping in for Troy Percival. This was, you have a closer. He's been your closer all year long. You get super frustrated with him and you dump him, and then you turn it over to like a solid 7th inning guy who's now throwing the 9th inning.
You had to do it. And I said that after that blown save and that 3-run home run. I think I texted our Giants chat group and I said, man, he has options left. He's young. He's struggling to find the zone. He's struggling just to throw strikes. I don't even want to see him at that point. I didn't even want to see him come in the 7th inning in a tight game. And you're not going to leave him on your roster to be Luke Jackson, who comes in to pitch when you're down, 5-1. He needs to work on his mentality. I think he needs to work on his, I love to say this phrase, intestinal fortitude. It's one of my favorites. But you can't really do that at the major league level when you get demoted from the closer role to a setup role, or not even a setup role, a mop up role. We have enough mop up guys. I don't want to see Doval do that. I want to see him go down, get right, get nasty, come back with a nasty attitude. I'd love to see him come back. I mean, I'd love to see him come back and just be that lights out ninth inning guy. Here's the question, though. Has he ever been the lights out ninth inning guy? Have you? I know I haven't. Have you ever been super comfortable when he comes in to a ball game since he's been in the majors?
No, and I would say last year was maybe the most that I felt confident, and it kind of felt like he was just improving and he was adding stuff that
Mhm.
was nasty. And this year it was like he was corporate Wild Thing from Major League 2. He was just like,
Yeah,
maybe feeling himself a little bit,
yeah.
you know, throwing not wanting to throw the fastball necessarily, or maybe not trusting the fastball as he has in the past, and pinching, kind of going after corners and segments of the plate and the strike zone and stuff. My hope is, okay, here's another question. Would this have happened under the Kapler Zaidi watch, or would they have just stuck with him, or would he have not fallen off like he did under their watch?
I think he would have fallen off under their watch, and I think it's because of the ad. He's Brian Wilson light, right? I mean, Brian Wilson would walk guys.
Yeah.
Brian Wilson would give up a hit, but he would nut up and bear down, and you could see it on his face. He wasn't going to let the next guy beat him. Camilo gives up walks, gives up a hit, and then I'm not quite sure what he's thinking by looking at his face out there, and then he'll throw 2 balls, and then you're like, I mean, the expression is exactly the same, which is, I guess, you want that from your closer, right?
Tranquilo Camilo, that's what they would
Yeah,
call him.
you want some chill, but you also want some fire. You want some pissed off. You want some Papelbon, right? I mean, you want that, like, I'm not happy I just walked that guy to lead off the inning. F the next 3 guys. I'm going after them. I'm throwing strikes. They want to beat me, hit my stuff. I'm not seeing that from Camilo. I don't think there's anybody else on the roster that we have. I mean, Sean Jelly would be kind of fun as a closer.
That's an interesting one. I like that one.
Yeah, I would like that because he's got that. He's got that FU in him. I mean,
I don't think they would do Hicks because it would kind of undo all of the stuff that they've done this year to get him ready to throw more innings.
But what if Hicks stepped up and said, "Let me do it"? You got to let him do it, right? Because if somebody steps up, puts their chest out and says, "I'm going to do this. I want to get us to the playoffs. I want to close out ball games, and I can do it." You kind of got to let him go.
It's kind of interesting that they didn't go with Taylor because he's done it before, but it doesn't seem like Melvin really trusts him to pitch beginning.
Yeah.
So he did, he's kind of been pitching in the 7th and the 8th a little bit more. Ryan Walker, great. He's kind of funky, but I've never seen him as like a stopper. I don't think he's got the stuff to be someone who just shuts the door. I think he's kind of funky like a Tyler Rogers in that sense, because he's got that crazy slider and he kind of comes from a different angle. But yeah, he also doesn't have that like shutdown mentality either. So I don't know if, it seems like he's going to be the guy, but I imagine there will be scenarios where Taylor might get an opportunity, or Tyler might get an opportunity based on the
Tyler's
situation.
done it, right? Yeah. He had like 11 to 15 saves back in, I want to say 21, 20. Somewhere
is that Mac Cheese time frame?
I think it was Mac Cheese time frame because Mac Cheese wasn't cutting it. And then, they were like, hey.
Or maybe he was cutting it.
Maybe he was.
The Mac
maybe
Cheese.
He was full of Gene Machi. But the other day when Ryan Walker got that save, I think it was Saturday, I was watching that and I go, he did the same thing Camilo does. It was like walk, single. And then, or no, I think it was single. And then he got some outs. And then if it wasn't Javier Baez at the plate hacking wildly, I'm not sure he gets that save. So that's where I'm still kind of like, who is the closer? I don't know 100% yet because
I
after watching
I
that, I was like,
like your suggestion of Jelly though, because he
I
throws
think he
hard
can do
enough.
it. Yes. And he throws hard enough and he's got the attitude. Yeah, he's
Yes.
a left-hander. That's not your typical closer, but he gets outs. And when he gets outs, he's pumped,
No,
man. I could
wait, did you
tell he
say he was
loves it.
left? He was left. Jelly's right-handed.
Oh, yeah, yeah. My bad. My bad. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Why am I thinking he's left-handed? I
are
don't
you
know.
thinking Randy Johnson?
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking Luke Jackson.
So no, I like that
Right.
because there's a presence there. He's a
Yeah.
giant human. He can hit 95, but he's
Mhm.
also he's a strike thrower. And in some instances when he throws a few innings too many, it seems like that is more to his downfall. But hell,
Yeah.
like that might be the closer. That might be the best one. We better. I don't know. Has anybody got Bob Melvin's email address or something?
Yeah.
Shoot him.
Should I go pick him up in fantasy and then no, because if I do that, then it won't happen. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Okay, so last thing here. Actually, one more thing before we get to the last thing, because I do have a maze moment. We haven't done one of those in a few episodes. Tyro's about to come off the DL fairly soon. Brett Wisely, he hasn't been tearing the cover off of the baseball, but he's kind of a steady presence there. Do you think they're going to do a little bit of platooning with those guys, or does Wisely just go to the bench and be utility guy again?
I think he's a utility guy. I mean, you gotta Tyro's your dude, defensively, Tyro's your dude. And when does he and is he coming off soon?
So the only thing I read was that they are they're doing some stuff as far as getting these guys ready. So who tweeted it today? Oh, Pavlovich tweeted.
Okay.
Busy day in Sacramento tomorrow. Tristan Beck will throw 3 innings. Tyler Matzek, that's the guy. That's our Luke Jackson. That's the new Luke Jackson who's been hurt the whole time. That was the guy that we got from the Braves. And Tyro will begin rehab assignments. So he is not ready, but it is something that they will have to think about roster-wise.
Yeah, and we need that Tyro defense. When he's healthy, that defense is pretty damn good. I mean, he had Gold Glove run-saving numbers before he got hurt. So yeah, I think you put him back in there. I mean, Casey Schmidt does a decent enough job at second base. But again, the bat is rough with Casey Schmidt. Wisely, he came up and he was on fire. I think with Wisely, he seems like you need to give him regular at bats. You have to say, Brett Wisely, you are our second baseman. You're getting at bats almost every game. Then he's strong. I put down a beautiful bunt the other day. Yeah, but Tyro's the guy.
All right, the last part of this episode is the maze moment. I think I have a graph. Oh, I do have a graphic. All right. I am still reading the Willie Mays and John Shea book, and there's a chapter on the catch. 1954 World Series, Vic Wirtz. Mays goes over his shoulder, makes the catch, throws it. Mays is more proud of getting the ball back into the infield and saving a run than anything else. He just assumed he was always catching that ball.
Yeah.
So they asked him, or they also asked a few other people, is that his best catch? And here's what Vin Scully had to say about Willie Mays' best catch ever. The catch in the Polo Grounds was a masterpiece, but that wasn't his greatest catch, Vin Scully said in 2019, 3 years after retiring. The greatest catch I saw was at Ebbets Field. The Dodgers were trailing by a run, and Bobby Morgan, a young third baseman from Oklahoma, came up and hit a ball in the gap in left center. In those days, the Ebbets Field warning track was gravel and the wall was concrete. Jesus. It was a sinking liner, and in my mind, it's scoring 2 runs. But Willie runs as fast as he could, dives for it with his body parallel to the ground, fully stretched out. He catches the ball and literally bounces off the gravel and into the base of the wall, rolling over on his back with both hands on his chest. I'll never forget Henry Thompson, the left fielder for the Giants, walking over, bending down, taking the ball out of Willie's glove and showing everyone he made the catch. It was incredible. And in the same chapter, Willie did say that he thought that was probably his best catch. Was that?
Yeah, I think I've heard him say that before, and that, but that's not on video anywhere.
No.
I mean, it's not. It's a time, and that was part of the crime for us. I was going to say us 50-year-olds, but you're not there yet.
I'm almost there. I got a couple years.
Us,
I'm going to give
40s.
you a late 40-year-old story here. Remember when Kyle Harrison was doing box jumps and he turned his ankle and we're kind of making fun of him? Come on, dude. So I was cleaning the kitchen yesterday.
This is not a good start.
And Crystal had made a pork roast. So I was cleaning the pan and I grabbed the foil and I didn't realize that there was grease in the foil and it kind of spilled onto the floor. So I threw it away and I went to go clean it up. And so it had spilled onto a mat. So I went to get the stain remover stuff for the mat. And then I went to get the kind of the all-purpose cleaner for the floor just to clean it all up. And so I sprayed all that stuff and went to go get the paper towel to clean it up. I literally took a half of a step to my left. And the mixture I created just made everything so much more slippery.
Oh, no. My
left foot just goes out. And I fall back and I kind of save the fall a little bit because I realized that there's a good chance I'm hitting the back of my head.
Yeah.
I'm going ass over tea kettle.
Yeah.
And I twist a little bit. And so I kind of land on now my shoulder hurts today. And I don't think there's damage there, but I fell pretty hard because it was so slick that I just went fast. And when you're small or when you're a younger person, you're so much closer to the ground that the fall is not that bad.
Well, I'm 5'8", so I'm still.
But still, but still.
Yeah. If I fall at 51 years old, it's not a good fall most of the time.
And so, as an adult, when you fall, and look, I had just done burpees that day, so it's not it's not like I can't get down on the ground and get back up really quickly. I was doing burpees, and as I hit the ground, that's exactly what I was thinking. How did I not catch myself? This is really weird.
How did you not turn that into a burpee?
Exactly. So I hit the ground and I couldn't even really make a sound, and I was like, oh no, did the wind get knocked out of me? No, the wind didn't get knocked out of me. It just took me 2 seconds to be able to go ugh, and the shoulder, and then I got up, and I'm a little banged up this morning.
Oh yeah,
but I apologize to Kyle Harrison for even thinking that he had some silly injury, because here I am getting injured while cleaning the kitchen.
Yes. Well, hey, didn't Jeremy Affeldt cutting chicken, right? Or carrying something. He'd had 2 or 3 injuries that. And he was younger, at the time. He was in his 30s when that stuff happened.
Yeah. So,
it does happen. Life happens. So.
Oh gosh. But I think that
I'm glad you're still with us.
Well, I think that means that I'm going to be accident free for a little while, right?
It's possible.
Law
or
of
it's just gonna snowball.
That'll be bad.
Yeah.
Me hitting the ground constantly, that'll be really bad. But I did have the wherewithal to make sure that I didn't bump my head, because I think that would have been bad.
Oh yeah.
All right. I think that's it from here. So next week the Giants have the Braves, and then they have the A's. So they got 6 games, 1 day off, 4 at home. The 2 games in Oakland are not bad. They'll probably be able to wake up in their own bed.
Yeah.
And then you get through this week. Look, if the Giants get through this week playing good baseball, And, let's say they go 4-2, which is, not out of the question.
Sure.
You get the White Sox coming into town. And so you're thinking sweep if the White Sox come into town. And then you play the Mariners. Now you go to the Brewers, and that's going to be hell to pay. But if you can get through the White Sox and then the Mariners, who are struggling, actually, the Mariners are actually playing this last week. They played some good baseball, but they had struggled previously because they were in the lead in the division not that long ago, and then the Astros overtook them. But they're really close to getting that division back. The both teams are kind of hot right now. But anyways, the Mariners are good team, but they're not a great team. You got to sweep the White Sox. So there are opportunities if the Giants really were about to get back into this race and maybe get into one of those wild card spots. These next 2 weeks are the time to do it. Not because I think that they're better than the Braves, but it's just because of the opportunity of playing a team who is ahead of you. And if you want to reel them in and pass them, this would be the week to do it. The A's and the White Sox in back-to-back series, you need to take care of business. And then the Mariners will be a good test because they kind of play similar style of baseball, like just keep everything close. And the Mariners are a little bit better than us, but still, they're kind of, they're unimpressively impressive, I guess, is how you.
Well, they have issues offensively as well. They're pretty much as close to our team as any other team out there, I think, with the good pitching, decent enough bullpen, but they can't score runs. They have a hard time scoring runs. So
yeah.
And tonight, don't forget, tonight is Jerry Garcia tie-dyed shirt night. So we were just talking about the Grateful Dead. So that's pretty awesome.
You had mentioned Don Nelson and the Grateful Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if Nelly was a big Grateful Dead guy.
No.
But who was a Grateful Dead guy was Bill Walton. Bill Walton was a giant Grateful Dead guy.
And I thought that Walton and him were pretty good friends, and that's why I thought so maybe it was, let's see.
That there is you might be right, because in 88 the Lithuanian basketball team with Šarūnas Maršalonis, who was a Warrior, they had Grateful Dead inspired jerseys.
Right.
And Nelson may have been involved in that. So maybe Nelly was a Grateful Dead guy. I don't remember.
All I did was look up Grateful Dead and Don Nelson and I got the article that former Warriors coach Don Nelson has a weed farm on Maui. At least that's all you need to know.
I got that part of the story right.
So if he's not a Grateful Dead fan, at this point, I'd be completely shocked.
Yeah.
So let's just go with that.
All right. Root for some victories so that when we get back here next Monday, we can talk about the Giants being, a serious contender for this wild card. So, all right. For Brad, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.